This week, we are welcoming a very talented musician, multi-instrumentalist, sound engineer, and apparently a coach, Jeffrey Rainey.
Hello, gentlemen.
Good day, sir. Welcome to the show.
Welcome, Jeff. Welcome. Glad to have you here.
First off, I got to know, what's Coach all about?
Coach?
Yeah, you had in your bio that people call you Coach.
Oh, that comes from Rogers. I guess because every co-op student and everyone who came on the scene after I started, and they were working in the audio department, I would work with them to learn how to teach them how the board worked and how things operated in terms of putting shows on the air. And the goal was always to get them to be able to do it independently. And you looked at how quickly you looked at how they picked up on things. You might have someone who's come in and who's familiar with tech and the audio background, and maybe they've done stuff for school, and some people who just stumble upon it for the first time. And sometimes it might take 2 days, sometimes it might take 2 weeks, but ultimately they get to where they're doing things independently. So I guess that's kind of where Coach came from.
And you're that guy. I love that.
Yeah, I'm that guy.
Okay, so first let's give some background on that. How's your vision today? How's that working?
It's about as good as every other day.
Every other day. So the reason I say it that way, and I'm sorry if that sounded flippant, because you know my friend Steve, I feel like I could be a little more silly with you.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. Thanks for forgiving me. I was like, "What? How's your vision today? That's horrible." But you're blind, right? So you're working the board without being able to see where all the controls are.
That's right.
So that's fascinating. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about your creativity. We're going to get into all the cool things that you do in just a second. But first, I'm going to say hi to Mark, because literally been a few days since I've seen you, and the cops were called.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, you didn't need to call the police. I would have left the store. I mean, geez, I might have even bought something, but you ran me out. No.
I tell you, there's some craziness going on in the world, because it was a cool day. The windows were down. Your dogs were in the car.
Sunroof was open.
Store. Sunroof was open. You were in the store for 5-10 minutes tops.
Yeah.
And this woman who was still wanting curbside service basically said that somebody called the cops on you because the dogs were in the car. Yeah.
And the dogs were literally under no duress. Like my wife and I, to be fair, we're the first people that think about the dog. We think about them first. We just on our travel back, every time we stopped for a stretch, which is frequent because you've got the dogs, stretch, pee break, we'd always give them a drink. They've got their own air conditioning in the back. At that time, I mean, obviously the car wasn't running. That's why we leave the windows down. It's just that they need to tell everybody. And the dogs were barking, which is probably why she thought they were under duress. But what it is the dogs are telling everybody that we've left them behind and we didn't bring them in to see Uncle Brian. So that's why they were barking. The dogs were under no duress. As a matter of fact, after we left you, we dropped them at my dad's house, and he spoiled them for the afternoon. So Grandpa spoils the dogs, and while we did other errands, and then because we didn't want to leave them in the car. But
the world's just too full of crazy. I couldn't like as a salesperson in a store, you have to kind of suck up a lot of stuff, right? Yeah. But as soon as she said that to me, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. Anyway. I sort of wanted to stick around and see if the police would show up, just
nobody
say,
did.
Hey, I figured they would. It's like that. Really, the police have better things to do than to deal with dare I say it, a Karen phoning in. My sister's name is Karen, and she's starting to think that's funny. But anyways,
all right.
Anyways, that's it. It was a good holiday. It was nice to see you in person, but more importantly, we have Jeff. So let's have a chat with Jeff, because
absolutely,
it sounds like to me Jeff does all the things that I wish I could have with music and sound and things like that. So I'm interested.
So you say could have, makes it sound like your time is up. I don't think it is.
Well, that's true. That's true. I mean, I'm going to be 51 this year, so my time is not up. But I'm comfortable. I'm where I'm at in life, and I have no regrets over that. But when I was in high school, I was in the sound department. I did all of the mixing and everything for Battle of the Bands, for talent nights, for the musicals they put on. I did all that, and then just never pursued it after I got out of high school, which I could have. I just didn't. There were other things to do, beer to be drank, and whatnot. So,
Plus, it's easy to get out of a couple of classes when you've got assemblies going on afterwards.
Exactly. Right. It was just nice. Oh, sorry, teach, I gotta go. I got an assembly I gotta go set up for it. It didn't take as long to set up. It wasn't that complex of a board, so it took like all of 10 minutes to get it set up, and then we'd sit in the empty auditorium and play our music for an hour until the assembly started. It was good.
Yeah, I mean, you get all the excuses down. Oh, we're working on the manual for this mixing board, which was, even if it was something that started, it never just went anywhere, but you acted like it was still in progress. And they know the size of those things. They know they're big. So you just like, oh, you're doing this today.
And it was important, right? Because it was, we can't have the cheer if we don't have the sound. So it was good, because let's be honest, without the sound at a concert or the mixer at a recording studio, I mean, where are you? You've got just a bunch of guys with amps. So, and we just lost Brian, so I'm sure he'll be back in a second. He texted me, did I cut out? Yes, you did. Yes, I was about to text back. Yes, you did.
There is.
So, but anyways, Jeff, welcome, and I'm excited to talk to you. So if you could, I'll start the question. So what exactly, now you mentioned Rogers. Are you a teacher at Rogers?
No, unfortunately not, no.
Okay. So what is your affiliation? What is it you do with sound? If you just explain it to our listeners, what is it you do with audio engineering and music?
Recording and editing. I'm doing a lot of editing these days, really. But yeah, recording music, doing editing, mixing afterwards. With Rogers, it was mostly live, like running the board while something was either being taped or was aired live to television.
Oh, sorry, Rogers Cable, not Rogers.
Rogers Cable. Yeah.
Okay. Rogers Television, yeah.
Right.
So,
sorry.
Some backstory. Am I live? Can I?
Yeah, we got you, Brian.
All right, cool. As some backstory, I work at Henry's Camera in Newmarket, and I work with a guy named Steve Walsh. And Steve, I happen to know from when I had the TV show on Rogers back in the day. Steve was our producer. So Steve talked to me about Jeff, and he's like, "Hey, man, you got to have this guy on your show. This guy is the most talented guy you'll ever meet. He's got a great personality and blah, blah, blah." Steve juiced you up. I'm sorry, he did. Anyway, basically telling us stories about how, you're able to work the board without being able to see a thing, and you memorize where the locations are, you get familiar with where everything is, and you're running it to the point where, like you say, I mean, you're called coach. You're able to help everybody else get better with it as well. But then he tells me that you're also a musician. And you're a creator in general. And right now, I think you're doing podcast editing. Is that right?
Yeah.
So maybe you can start off with first, when you're working with Steve, working with Rogers, was that starting off like a lot of people do with Rogers as volunteer work? Or did you apply for the job? Like, how did that all start?
It started when I just gotten out of college and I needed something to put on the resume. I needed some experience. And so I'd kind of been hearing from people that they, at one point in their career, did work with Rogers Television. And it was actually my vision teacher who suggested it. I forget how the connection was made, but I applied to Rogers TV in Richmond Hill and ultimately got accepted. I say ultimately, it wasn't like it was really hard to get in there. They met you, and if they thought you were a good candidate,
they gave me a show. So I mean, that's
exactly. There you go.
Well, they never gave me a show, so they do have some standards.
Yeah, you have to ask, Mark. You have to ask.
Oh, okay. So I thought you were standing here as a show for. I thought it was like Oprah. You get a show, and you get a show. Everyone gets a
There's
show.
a show under your seat. There you go.
Right? Everyone reach under your seat. There's never mind. We didn't clean up after yesterday.
Different show.
A different show. Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, that's not easy to do. So obviously, you went to school. You went training. You learned how to use boards. So do you find every board is the same, or does it take you a long time to adjust to each?
I guess you could say it's kind of like driving, where, I mean, fundamentally every car is the same. Instrument panels are going to be different. One might be bigger, might be driving a Toyota Corolla one day and then a gigantic, Silverado the next day. But ultimately they follow the same guideline. And a lot of them are touch these days, or have touch components to them, touch screens, I guess. And some are all analog. They use buttons and knobs and circuitry. Some are more complex than others. Obviously, some have they use them for different purposes, but ultimately, at the core, they're the same.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think with like an iPhone or a phone touchscreen type device, that would be a little bit more trouble. Is there some sort of different operating system that you're able to use to make that easier?
As far as like an iPhone?
Yeah, no, like if there were a board, I guess they still have toggles, or are there boards now that are just touch interface like a tablet?
There might
or has that not been a problem?
There might be a board that's all touch. It would probably still have to have, at the very least, like faders. Nowadays, a lot of boards have connectivity. I'm sure you've seen this before, especially with other cameras and stuff. So even if something were inaccessible, first off, I mean, there was actually the board at Rogers was touchscreen, and not only was it was kind of groundbreaking in a lot of ways. It was a strange device because I think it was from the year 2000, so it had both a floppy drive and a touchscreen in the one unit.
That transition year.
Exactly. It really was. If you want a transition, that was it. It also had a computer terminal on the right. So, and this actually goes to one of the things that we worked around when they revamped the studio. Was one of the things you'd have to do for going live to air was making sure that the master control on the other end, like at I guess at headquarters, could connect with you. So you'd have everything timed for when you go to break, when you come back. So you'd run the test tone, which is the 1 kilohertz sine wave, like that everyone knows.
Yep.
And that was used originally with one of the touchscreen buttons, or maybe it was one of the terminal buttons. So we assigned one of the I'll just say buttons that was previously unassigned to that control. And not only did it help me, but it helped another longtime audio volunteer from there who has cerebral palsy and is in a wheelchair. So obviously he's a bit lower to the ground. And he didn't have to reach over to the other side and find the button. He was fully sighted, so even he could just reach up and grab and push the button on top. So there are ways of getting around it. And even if it's tough, you can nowadays they link to they might have a company app that you can run on your phone or on Android that does have support, so you could be able to read the app from there. So there are different ways to do it.
Good accessibility. That's awesome. That's great. Yeah. Have you felt hindered in any way in this career getting into Rogers? I mean, it sounds like they're extremely open, accessible kind of place to work.
Yeah, the one thing I would have liked to have done was gone on more mobiles. I think there may have been some uncertainty about how do we have this gentleman who's blind on site with all these moving parts, with different cables, with cables going everywhere, different cameras, people going around. When you could have, and I understand liability is one thing, but it's knowing your way around a building or even around a truck or the kind of facility is fairly easy to do. It's like when you go to workplace for the first time. Do you know how to get everywhere when you get to work on the first day? No,
right.
You don't know where the bathrooms are. You find out really quick because you're going to need those. So yeah, I mean, in some case, I mean, there was that aspect. It would have been nice to do more on location stuff, but what I was able to do, I mean, no, there was never any. If anything, it was a really loose environment. We had to get people to be okay with, talking, making blind jokes every now and then.
Right. I mean, it's just being people, right, and talking, and respect is there, of course. Now, do you find that's the perception though of the way they were seeing it, or do you think that they thought you couldn't do it, but you could have?
I know that everyone that I was dealing with knew that I could do it, but it was people in a different department who I don't think I ever met before, that people who really didn't know me that kind of assumed that. And I found out later that there were some people that went to bat for me, which is really nice, but that part just didn't work out.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just like anything, change takes time sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And somebody like yourself showing people that it can be done and done well is how it has to be done. So that's the way it should be. It's awesome.
And it's a particular skill set that you have as well, and it's knowing and having an affinity for the equipment that you're using, the board, and even knowing how to use different boards as they come along, and learning how to use the board. And obviously, you're taking the time to learn how to use it. You're not just it doesn't sound like you would be the kind of guy that would throw an excuse out there. Well, no, we need to keep this old board because I just want to know how to use. You're going to say, yeah, sure, give me the new board and I'll learn it. And it's no different than anybody else learning a new piece of equipment. You just have a different way of learning it, other than the visuals. So that's kudos to Rogers for giving you that chance, because there's a lot of people that would have seen that as that's. I don't want to call it a disability. I think it is.
Well, that's what it is, though.
But it's for you. You're definitely not letting that hold you back, and kudos to you for that, and having the I'm going to call it the courage to go after it, because there's a lot of people that would just sort of roll up and say, well, I'm just going to do something different and not something that doesn't require my sight maybe as much. But that's awesome. Like it's a very inspirational thing that you do to let people know that if they've got a disability, that most workplaces do have accessibility guidelines for their operation. So absolutely.
There's two stories I want to talk about to that point. One, you are a self-professed social butterfly. So you love getting out there and you love doing stuff and you love talking with people and collaborating with people. This is through, what you've told us about yourself already in our notes. So that's awesome. But it's also the people you work with that help with those things too, right? Like I know Steve and I know some of the stories he's told me. And as some of the shenanigans that you guys were potentially going to get up to, where he wanted to have you go into a store and he would be feeding you lines and stuff like that. And because you necessarily can't see, but it would be just this, I don't know, Steve is a crazy guy. I don't know what he's talking about, but you had fun with it is my point. You're able to see it for what it is and work with people, and people respect you enough, and they respect you, but it's still, you can talk about it and you can laugh and you can have some fun with it. And I think that's super important. It's more than, okay, anybody, like you said yourself, Mark, it's not too late for Mark to go and do this, right? To be an engineer. It's not too late for somebody to go and learn something, but it's who you are and who you surround yourself with that let you blossom and be yourself. And the fact that you can still just be yourself and hang out with your friends and just make light of that situation. That's the difference maker, I think. Everybody can be talented and learn and do something, but not everybody can have a positive attitude and see a down situation and make it not a situation at all. And I think that's kind of, I don't want to say not a situation at all. And I don't want to take words out of your mouth, Jeff. I'm sure it's a situation. I'm sure it's a struggle for you to learn and to do these things, but I'm looking at you right now. I can't see that struggle. I see a guy who's perfectly fine just doing whatever he wants to do. How accurate am I?
Yeah, accurate. I mean, obviously, like you said, there's a lot more that I could be doing. There's sometimes where it's kind of hard to go like, oh, if I was, when I was in school, if I had maybe pursued accessibility a little bit more. But although, I mean, no, like I love just being me and getting out and doing everything and being with people and just talking about it too. I think that just being able to let others know that you're open to answering questions.
Yeah, that's important. That is important because there is some stigma and fear about saying the wrong thing, especially in this day and age.
Yes.
And I'm really bad at that. So I apologize if I say something that's wrong, because there's no ill will ever from me. But yeah, I'm bad at that too. I say some things and I think they're funny or they're going in the right way, and sometimes they don't. So you can be understanding of that, and I'm sure you are. But it's a different time these days, and I'm glad that you're able to open up and answer questions to people, because people need to know these things. And that's another reason I'm happy you said yes to being on the show.
Absolutely.
What was the transition like from Rogers? Where did you go from that, and how did that end? Why? I mean, obviously the Rogers and Richmond Hill and the broadcast side of things has changed.
Yeah, they decided to appropriate that space for, I think it was more of the it's either the telecommunications side or maybe the security. I think it was more the telephone or the computer guys, and just more of the other departments wanted in, and they've moved a lot of that stuff sort of in a few different keys. I won't lie, it's been challenging. I've been applying for different jobs. I've gotten some work a lot of times just doing work from home. That's kind of where the editing job has come from. But yeah, I won't lie, it's still a challenge. Making sure, and a lot of times some of it is part of being blind, or some cases it's just general job filling out applications. One thing I find now is when someone hires someone, they want to for the price of one. So sometimes if you're applying for a job in dealing with audio these days, they might want someone who is both, a board operator and a camera operator at the same time. That's kind of been I guess that's one sort of hindrance or just way of getting around it. But all in all, it's been okay.
Cool.
Yeah, I could see that as a manager of a retail store right now. The first thing I do when I hire new staff is I cross-train them, so that if somebody does call out sick, or somebody wants to take vacation, that you've got another person that they can say, okay, Steve also knows camera, so we can pull him off board because we've got Jeff as well as Steve. So we'll leave Jeff on the board, put Steve on camera for the night. So I could see that from a cross-training perspective. If they're looking for two for the price of one. But when you're looking at a camera operator versus a board operator, it's generally two very different animals that hopefully many companies aren't trying to skimp out and have one person do everything for them. But I also know that it's business and they do that.
Yeah. Get the most they can. That's frustrating though. It's frustrating. Yeah. But music, how does that play into it for you?
As far as professionally, or even just creativity? Creativity
wise, I mean, the reason Mark, myself, Aurora, and Ryan started this podcast was because when COVID first hit, we're all creative people in our own ways, right? We all like to do things that are creative, and when you can't do anything, it's like it feels like the world's just closing in on you. I'm sure you know where I'm coming from this.
All too well, yeah.
So when COVID first hit, we all needed to do something. And we talked about the idea of doing the podcast. And for me, it's been life-changing. It's been incredible. I know we all have our own stories, and there's certain episodes that touched us more than others. And but the whole process of staying creative and doing things is super important. So when things stop, Rogers stops, whatever, we fall back on what we love, our other creative sides. And how did that kick in with you? Did you start doing more music? Did you start recording more? Because I've listened to your SoundCloud. I mentioned to you before we hit record last week when we tried to record the episode and my sound wasn't working. The whole day I'm listening to your SoundCloud, listening to the different blending of music that you do. And that's something I want to talk to you about as well, how you blend it and how you beat map it. You can get the tempo right and stuff like that. I want to talk about that in a second. But in general, was the music something that you fell back on when COVID first hit? Because I know, like you say, you're a social butterfly, and you mentioned it to us before. Lockdown, I'm sure, must have been hard on you.
Yeah, it's tough to say. It's tough to keep 6 feet apart from someone you can't see in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
At first, I was also getting a lot into saxophone at the time. I was taking lessons online. I was doing some recording with people that had started before the pandemic, and then went into a little bit of the pandemic. I tried a couple of live streams. Everyone was trying the latest and greatest app in terms of I think there was Acapella, there's Play With Me, and there's a bunch of other things where you could play virtually with other people.
Right.
And I was I didn't want to be left out. So I was all right, let's try. I'm already working on these techniques on learning saxophone. Let's try a couple of Facebook live streams. So that was something that I tried. And there was also some jams that were held on Facebook and StreamYard that were started up as well. So that was fun. But I won't lie, there were times where the inability to play with other people and just to have that free-flowing aspect of it was tough, and it was easy to, in some cases, just kind of put things aside for a bit and just take the easy route out, and then watch sports all day, which is something else that opened up in of itself. But there were times where I tested it, so I'd say a mixed bag.
Yeah, I understand that. I joked at the beginning of the show that maybe somebody could teach me better guitar, but where I learned most of my guitar is playing with other people. They'll show me a riff or a lick, and I would just learn it from them. And last week was no different. I was at a friend's house, and he brought a guitar down, and then he sat it down and brought another guitar down and handed it to me, and he says, "Hey, I want to teach you this thing." This song that I just learned, which he had played for me already. And I'm like, hey, I know that song, which tickled him a little bit because first off, I recognized it. So it meant he was playing it right. But the two of us used to be, well, we still are close friends, but we used to play together all the time when we lived closer. And now we live, 14 hours apart. So it's difficult to get together. But the one thing we never did do was do it online and get together through StreamYard or Facebook or something like that and do something. But I absolutely get that, where you learn from somebody else. So how did you play saxophone before the pandemic and we're learning, or is it something you've just picked up?
I'd started the year before, I think. But it does take it does take some time to get even good at it. And I was really starting to feel comfortable with playing with people. Yeah, even when I wasn't comfortable, I would still go out and play with people at local song circles and stuff, and kind of take note from that, especially if someone was taking a video, or even if I made some recordings myself and listening to that and hearing how you sounded comparing to either other people that were around you or other people playing saxophone. So I was still strong in that as well. So that was something that was very recent. And so initially COVID wasn't discouraging to that. But.
And I can see the allure of learning the saxophone. It is a very distinctive sounding, I've always loved the sound of a saxophone. But being a wind instrument is something that I could never play. So it's for we'll just say personal reasons, because of the moisture that forms in a wind instrument.
Yeah,
I don't do spit very well.
Yeah,
to think of it in there pooling in the corner. No, can't do it. I played the baritone in public school, and I just made every excuse on the earth to not take it, because when you were draining it, it was like,
that's funny.
But that's why I play guitar now, because there's no spit, or a lot less spit.
Yeah. Unless you're Jimi Hendrix, there isn't a lot of mouth moving on the guitar.
Yeah, right. And I am not Jimi Hendrix. So.
Yeah, I dabbled with. I played the bugle in a drum and bugle corps. I played the cello, clarinet. I shouldn't say I played. When you're a kid, your mom kind of says, "Here, play this year," and you kind of dabble. It's like, no, I don't like it. And then you try something else. And I landed on the drums. And that's just because spit may still be flying, but it's for different reasons, But no, it's awesome that you were learning something new like that. How many instruments do you play?
I think around 6 or 7.
Only? Oh, okay. So, you're a late bloomer. You just don't like really trying too hard. Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I started when I was 4 years old.
Yeah, I'm just going to show myself out.
Okay, so what do you play? What total do you play?
Keyboard, piano and keyboards, drums, flute, saxophone, banjo, steel guitar, and dulcimer.
My mother would love you. My mother plays everything just like you do. It's amazing. Anybody who can just cross over from one totally different instrument, like from a wind instrument to a guitar to a piano. I mean, those are 3 different disciplines all together. Do you find you pick these things up easily?
Yeah, I think starting off on piano really helped, because piano has everything. It's one of the biggest instruments, and it has all the notes, all the keys, and you can learn even just the basics of. I say music theory rather loosely, but just what the notes are, the 12 notes that are in a scale. Once you know that, basically. Every other instrument, melodic instrument aside from percussion, is really just is really using the same 12 notes in in the scale. It's just a different way of playing it, whether if it's blowing into it or playing with a bow or playing strings or no strings sort of thing. And some of it just kind of happened organically. Like the piano was one thing that I was initially like, I got a keyboard for Christmas when I was 4. I had some very primitive lessons on what each note was, what they sounded like, and what they were called. But it was mostly just kind of self-taught, like hearing a song and having played around with the keyboard and then getting familiar with what each note sounded like and kind of piecing things together. Like I remember when I taught myself how to play Clocks by Coldplay, because it was when it had just come out and it was big. And when I learned that I could do that, I was like, wow, this is great. And I guess kind of went from there. Although it's funny just thinking about that now on a conscious effort. It was all just open when you're a kid. You don't think so much about the how and why. You don't really think about these things chronologically. Drums came about because I'd seen my cousin and my uncle's kit in their barn on their farmhouse, and I really loved the way that you played them. I love how they sounded, and I just made my own DIY kit at home with a bunch of different things, and I'd situated them in the way that a drum kit would be laid out. And I think my parents took note of that, and even though I'd never asked for a set of drums because I knew that they were prohibitively expensive, I got one.
Yeah, they are.
Flute, and I'll kind of just go, flute came about because of high school ensemble. There were no piano or drums to play, and so it was like, okay, like starting off from square one. And I just chose the flute because I liked the sound of it, and I'd never really been around woodwind and brass instruments, so it just kind of seemed. But I ended up just really loving that and running with it. Lucky for me, it's tuned to the same way as a piano, so I didn't have to do any transposing like you do with. Actually, so is baritone. So even though it's disgusting, it's at least in the same tuning as a piano. Whereas trumpets, French horns, saxophones, clarinets all were different.
So was the flute because you like Jethro Tull, or because of like more of a Jean-Pierre Rampal kind of thing? Like, which flute do you?
It wasn't really based off of anything. I hadn't really listened to a lot of flute music. It was more of just I liked the sound of it, the way it sounded, and I don't know. Maybe that's just what it was. I mean, it was definitely the smallest, but
cool. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think the dexterity that it takes to play each instrument is so different. That's what really gets me. Like the piano, you're so separated. Drums, I guess it's all just separation and just focusing on. It's crazy. Well, good for you. That's awesome. Love it.
Excellent. Is there another instrument that you're thinking you want to pick up and start learning? Obviously, you're still learning the sax by the sound of it, but it sounds like since you're going to music circles, you've got a handle on that. Is there something else you're thinking of picking up?
Absolutely. A friend of mine wants me to play clarinet, probably for a couple of other songs. Okay. I can't remember what his originally was, but I, at some point as well, would love to learn how to play the bagpipes. I think that would be
very cool.
I'm sure your neighbors would love that too.
Right. Exactly. I'm surprised the banjo didn't drive anybody. Well, actually, maybe it did. Maybe
banjo is incredible. My mom plays the banjo. She is so good. She plays the mandolin, the banjo.
Oh, wow.
When I was younger, I was living in Vermont, and my uncle and my mother did dueling banjos over the phone. Like in my house in Vermont, my mother was playing on one phone, and I was on a different phone, and my sister was on a different phone. And in my uncle's place in Montreal, he was playing I think he was playing the mandolin. My mom was playing the banjo, and they did the dueling banjos thing. One of the most incredible, memorable moments of my life was listening to this music happen over the telephone. Oh. I mean, it was awesome.
There's a core memory right there.
Exactly, right? Music does
That's
that
awesome.
for people.
That's awesome. But the bagpipes are cool. My heritage is British, so obviously British Isles. And when my wife and I got married, we had a piper pipe my wife down the aisle. We were married outside, so they piped her down. He piped her down the aisle, and then he played softly while we were signing the registry and everything, and then he piped us back out, which was a lot of fun.
When done well, it's incredible.
Yeah, it was. He was awesome. He wasn't very Scottish though. His name is Tom Fraser. So he was obviously very Scottish, spoke with a very thick accent as well. But in my previous career, one of the vice presidents that I worked under was a piper, and one of the support staff that supported my district was also a piper. So that's interesting. I love the bagpipes. So if you get on the bagpipes, we'll have you back on and playing.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I was going to say the only piper that I've ever known is Rowdy Roddy Piper, who also played the bagpipes. So
I did not know that.
yeah, though the wrestler, right?
I knew the wrestler. But I didn't.
Yeah.
Is that where? Because I remember the kilt and everything.
That's where he got it. Yeah, piper.
He actually piped.
Oh, he piped very well.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah.
Have you
Anywho,
guys ever
I've
seen the Red Hot Chili Pipers?
No.
Are they a thing? Like
They are a thing.
Oh, now I have to Google that.
I'm making a note. Pipers. That's hilarious. Are they like? Do they wear like a sock over their groin and stuff, or are they?
Are they sure?
Oh my god! When you type in Red Hot Chili, it's the chili peppers is the first result on my Google, and chili pipers is the second.
Oh, that's hilarious.
That's awesome.
Well, definitely gonna check.
And
that
they're
out.
on tour. Wait a minute, are they on tour? There we go.
Red Hot Chili Pipers.
Most famous bagpipe band on the planet.
Well, I've heard of them now.
Yeah,
That's cool.
nice.
All right, so let's get into the next type of music that you do and the mixing and the blending of songs. This is what I want to kind of find out about. And we talked about it a few minutes ago, how some of your recordings weren't able to be aired and so on and so forth. So first off, maybe you can explain to us how this came to be, where you mash up songs, and talk about maybe where people can hear this music and what it means to you.
It's tough to, again, it's kind of tough to point it out because it all happened sort of by happy accident. I think I got into it because when I just got a computer and I was online and I was figuring out how the internet works. I had a friend who was blind and teaching me how to use a computer with a screen reader. And he was really into this online radio station at the time. And the owner wrote a lot of stuff using using MIDI and electronic keyboards and software instruments as well. And he had this whole website of just instrumentals that he used. And I just had this idea once of trying to put two of these instrumentals together because of how they sounded. And the first one started out easy because they were already the same tempo. And then just talking with someone else who was already doing those types of mashups, he showed me how to use time compression. And it was really just doing a lot of these things that I found out how you get how you can get the exact tempo of songs in order to be able to manipulate them. And there are tools that will do it for you, but also once you do it as well, you kind of have a rough estimate of, you can kind of take an educated guess, just doing it a while and paying attention. But soundcloud.com/jamming-Jeffrey, I think it's Jeffrey, is there. And those were all admittedly, I was into them a lot more at the time. Now I've kind of scaled back on them. I just find that I don't have as many thoughts that would come to me, although there still are some that I want to do. There's one that I'm finally able to do because of, for a while, source material was the problem, finding some kind of instrumental or a cappella to do that. But now there's separation tools that are out there that will let you do that. And
so you basically hear two songs that you think might work well together, and you paste them, and then you blend them, and you add little bits here or there. Is that how it works?
Yeah. And I mean, it doesn't have to be just two songs. Mine primarily are two or maybe even three songs at the most. But I mean, like, if you guys ever heard like the United State of Pop or or even DJ Earworm, like mashups are quite trendy now. And there are artists that can make entire songs, like can write songs using bits from, like, I think DJ Earworm is one of the most popular ones, or even what's that guy on? I think this is going to be really local to like Ontario listeners, but on Z103 or Kiss 92.5, the I don't want to say the Mad Dog. I forget the mashup artist, the DJ that they have in the mornings. He always has his little mashup sets. But there are people that can write entire songs out of, samples of pop songs. And that to me is, I love it. That is a form of songwriting in my mind in of itself. So
yeah, I agree. I mean, just being able to piece these things together and have them blend well. Like I just shared one in our internal chat here. So if Mark wants to listen to what I'm talking about from your SoundCloud, it was the one with Timbaland and Sashi versus Quantic.
Yes, that one.
I'm a vibey kind of music person, right? Like I get into a vibe of a song, and when you were blending those together, I turned my lights, I put them on the dance mode. I closed the window, like I closed the door, and I just kind of put the headphones on and kind of vibed on with that song. You do a good job. You do a really, really good job. And I was able to go from track to track to track to track and just listen to it like it was my random play music list. So it was awesome. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for, letting me know that you do these things, because I didn't, you know what? I don't listen to a lot of this kind of stuff. I listen to the same 6 to 10 artists on my phone all the time. I've said it a million times. I'm kind of a Tool, The Police, Rush kind of blend, and then throw in some of the new stuff every once in a while. Lots of Foo Fighters, that kind of stuff. So I haven't really been exposed to a lot of the mixing other than what my wife might listen to. So it was great to listen to this stuff.
Yeah, it's the mashups are very, very interesting. I think it takes an ear, and it's an ear that I don't have, to be able to identify that the two songs would fit well together. And it's, I hear it all the time, whether it's Disturbed and the Cranberries mashed up, or it's Disturbed Cranberries. Anyways, it's
Exactly.
there are so many. Like you can go on YouTube and find, just type in mashup, and you'll get all kinds of crazy stuff. And you would think, how do they fit together? But they do. And there are so many people. I don't want to say there's so many people, because there is a talent to that. It's a very creative talent to driving that kind of sound and identifying that these two songs will fit together. But then also it's the vocals are fitting with the other music, which is interesting and insane all at the same time, because it's such a lot of times a different genre completely. And I love they're fun. And that's what I like about them. These are a lot of fun.
Do you hear, like, just when you were doing it, obviously you say you haven't done it, in a minute, let's say, when you were doing it more heavily, did you find like you were just all of a sudden you hear a song and think, hey, that would blend well with this song, and then sit down and try and do that? There's been a lot of times I've thought of, this would kind of go well with this, but I've never sat down and tried to put anything together.
Yeah. Sometimes a lot of them like were just like came out of nowhere. Like, they were shower thoughts, or when I'd be on, when I'd be commuting to school or to work, something that would come into my mind, and I would mark it down for when I would get home to be able to do it. I remember the first time I heard the song, what was it? I think it's called Come in Prayer. Or I think it was just called, I forget what it was called now, but, and I can't remember what it's called. Either way, that was one that, were upon first time hearing it, it kind of had it kind of sounded like a hangover from the 90s. I'm like, this sounds like something from 1999. And that one came out at first, but a lot of times it was a song may have been out for a couple of years, or a couple of them were challenges too. I remember when Just a Dream by Nelly had come out, and someone challenged me to put something with that, or, a Rihanna song that was up there. But a lot of times they just kind of came very organically.
Cool.
I still do.
Yeah. Are you still doing it? Like, do you still mash them up?
Yeah, not as frequently as I used to, but I do have a couple. And thanks to the reminder, actually, before the show, you'd mentioned that they only go like with the SoundCloud page. I'd actually deliberated doing a SoundCloud page for a while because of this very same problem. But there's got to be a way of just accounting for the fact that these are like, we're not making any money off of these. They're just for creative
right.
commons, I guess you could say. I don't want to go into the legalese of it, but there's, in my mind, there's nothing really illegal about this. It's just a creative form. And if someone is making money off of these illegitimately, because there are people that DJ for a living that do this, sometimes in software, sometimes with hardware. They do it the old school way, but for a lot of times it's just hobby.
Yeah, it's just like our show here. I mentioned to Jeff earlier, Mark, when we had Tally on, and she had her promo reel. If you watch our show back, when her promo reel hits, the music cuts out, the audio cuts out because she's got I'm a Survivor playing. And so they really, we're not making any money from this. We're not monetized. We're not monetizable. So when it's a situation like that, you'd think they would just be like, whatever. But
But no, that's cool though. I really admire the mashups and the fact that you're creative and that you want to do that. So you've got a couple of other ideas for mashups.
I do. I would love to take the song "Castles on the Hill" by Ed Sheeran, and marry that with "Change the Sheets" by Kathleen Edwards. And that one's going to be tough because that one's going to take some thought because they're both very strong. They're both very strong lyrically. Like they have a lot to fill in. So be working around those two. And there is one with going back to have there been any that I've heard that just kind of instantly jumped at me. One of my friends is a huge Justin Bieber fan, and when the song "I'm So Lonely" came out, not the Police song, but the Justin Bieber one.
I was going there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that came out, I was like, you know what? This is a good song, but it also, like, I kind of got Phil Collins-y vibes off of it. And I was like, this needs something a little bit more slower and a little more melodramatic. It already is kind of a melodramatic song, but a little bit more ballady type. And I ended up pairing that with have you guys ever seen Brother Bear, the Disney film?
Yeah.
With one of the Phil Collins songs from Brother Bear. And I got to find a place to upload that one because that's one of my favorites. And that was one of her favorites too. So.
That actually had a great soundtrack, that movie.
It really did.
Very cool. Yeah. What a mix.
You know what's funny is that my wife and I were actually talking about that movie last week.
Get out of here.
Yeah, it's the when she gets the spell from the witch, right? And she gets all upset because it turns her brother into the bear, right? So it's like, that scathy witch give me a gammy spell. So we joke about it, and it's because we actually saw I think it was a license plate, and she realized that there's going to be a whole series of plates that is like because of the 4 letters now you can abbreviate it to scathy. So it's scathy witch give me a gammy spell, and it's
Let me ask you guys a random question on this kind of point. I'm going to squirrel a little bit here. What percentage of your daily vocabulary do you think comes from media, TV, music? I'm going to ask each of you individually. Yeah, Mark, you can start.
Yeah, pop culture reference in general, I'm going to say it's got to be 30-40%.
Yeah, I'm
whether it be from a commercial or a movie or a song or something like that. Yeah.
What do you think, Jeff?
I would say around that too. Actually, we were just having fun with this yesterday. My in-laws and I and my family were having fun with quoting. I think it was Uncle Buck.
Oh, come on.
Lines from Uncle Buck.
Oh, classic lines.
Classic movie.
And my sister-in-law was kind of like, okay, guys, I'm going to just sort of smile and nod because I haven't seen this movie before.
Oh, you haven't seen it?
She hadn't, but
your sister hasn't. Okay.
There are so many great quotable lines from just about any John Candy movie.
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is
just Stripes.
Those are pillows.
Where's your hand between 2 pillows?
Oh, I love John Candy. I miss John Candy.
Oh my God! I met him once. I think I was about 12 years old. I met him in Home Hardware at Newmarket there. The one on the hill up from Fair Nights there. Yeah. I was in there with my parents. They were shopping, and he was there. It was shortly after Stripes came out, I think. So that's how old Mark is. Anyways.
Oh, he's so good.
Yeah, it's just a talent that will weep at the loss of that talent.
I'm still waiting to find a SCTV box set, like every episode of SCTV, because he did a skit with as Johnny LaRue. Do you guys know who I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so he did a skit as Johnny LaRue that I think of almost daily because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You know that expression, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Well, he did the skit where he walked into this room full of women doing laundry. Of course, it was the 70s, 80s. And they're all doing laundry, Johnny's smoking a cigarette. And they're like, Johnny, there's grease on my shirt. She's like, oh, you got grease on your shirt. You put in more grease. So he puts the shirt in the machine. He puts in grease. And then he leaves. And he comes back in. And they're like, Johnny, our shirts are all greasy. He goes, sometimes it works. Sometimes he doesn't. Smokes a cigarette and walks out. And I'm like, brilliant. It's like you just dissolved the entire situation by being totally aloof in it. That was awesome. I loved it. Yeah, I know I squirreled a little bit there. But
yeah, that's what we were squirreling anyway with the Brother Bear reference. That's all good.
Love it. All right. So we've got some questions before we go. Before we do that, though, Mark, do you have any other questions you'd like to ask Jeff?
No, I think I'm good. I just want to say thanks, Jeff, for being on the show. Appreciate your time this evening, and really have enjoyed chatting with you this evening. So that's great. Thank you for being here.
Awesome. Absolutely.
All right. So 3 questions at the end of every episode. If you've watched any of our episodes, you would know what these 3 questions are. The first one is something you know, which is, what is your challenge? What challenge would you issue to our listeners from your perspective?
There's a couple that I've thought about, and one of them I would say is, it might come out of left field, but make it a goal to meditate at least once a day. Try meditating for 10 minutes once a day for a week. It's certainly helped me. I was, I've been familiar with meditation before I've done it, but I just really did it out of necessity just a couple of weeks ago, just because I was just feeling overwhelmed with stuff that was coming in from work. And it wasn't even a lot. It was just mentally. I was just having trouble focusing, and was anxious and was running a million miles a minute. And of course, when you're in that kind of state, you're not, under most circumstances, you're not getting much done. So just sitting back for 10 minutes and really just and meditating to, even if you don't have if you have a bowl or something great, like one of those meditation bowls, great. If not, look up a video exercise on YouTube and just sit through it. And you'll be amazed when you come out of that how just clear your mind will be and how ready you'll be just to take on whatever it is you're willing to take on.
It's not as weird as you may think. We've actually had other guests give a very similar thing. So
it's a practice that I do when I start to feel overwhelmed. I do a very simple mindfulness of breath meditation that I can do self-guided now because I've done it so many times. But that's always a good place to start, is if you YouTube mindfulness of breath meditation. That's a great one to start with.
Yep. And even for myself, every day before work, I usually give myself a good hour to just get myself straight. And I do a lot of meditation. I sit and I focus and listen to some music and just absolutely get myself prepared for the day. It's important to take care of yourself. And I think meditation is a great way to do it. Love it.
Self-care is paramount, and not many of us take the amount of time that we should in that self-care.
Yep. Hey, it's fixed my back even, which is very weird. Nice. Just giving yourself proper time to get right. Okay.
Stress going away.
Yeah. All right. So that was one. Thank you so much. Now, the second and third question you may not know. The first one is tools of the trade. So we all have our own things that we fall back on and rely on every time that we're working that really get us through there. It doesn't have to be a physical tool. It could be a mental tool. It could be something that you tell yourself just to get yourself through the day. Do you have something that you can call on as your tool of the trade?
If we're talking about actual tools, I would say I love my Zoom H1 recorder. It's really great for jotting down ideas. But I mean, even just a lot of times reminding myself that I've been here before, and I can do it again. Is something that really helps me with. You might be doing something for the umpteenth billionth time, but you're nervous about it, or it might be a little bit different. And it's like, you've done this before, and you've rocked it every time. And here you were nervous about it before, and come on, just enjoy it and go with it. That's something really kind of just positive reassurance.
That's an interesting one, because I totally do that. I think a lot of us who have a lot of self-doubt kind of fall and have to rely on telling yourself, I've done this before. Like when I do a workshop, I stress out like crazy before every single one of them because there's so many things that can go wrong. And all I can, Shelly's like, Brian, you've done this before. Like, why are you freaking out about it? But it's true. I mean, this is the way the brain works, right?
Yeah.
So it's good to remind yourself. I love that. All right. So your tools of the trade, your Zoom H1, and remind yourself that you've done it before. Love it. All right. So last question we have for you is, what's your jam? What song will you never skip past? What song absolutely gets you revved? If you can think of one, if you can't, maybe a group, a type of music. But what's your jam?
A song that, I mean, I have a couple. There are a couple of songs that will just always get me revved up. There are a couple of songs that help calm me down. I mean, obviously, I'm a huge David Gilmour fan, and his stuff is really soothing to listen to and also just enjoyable to listen to. And sometimes what I've even done, even just for the sake of going to sleep, is when I was on vacation one time, I made these recordings of the ocean front, and I would put on David Gilmour while this stuff was playing, and it just fit so much. So like I guess Pink Floyd is one really good one for me. If I need to get piped up at some point, I would say anything from Van Halen 1 is a good pumper. You know, I'm the one. You know, I hear the guitar to that and the drums and just David Lee Roth coming in, and that's like, all right, let's rock. Let's get out there and do this.
Yeah.
You know?
Awesome. That's awesome. Brian, did you freeze again? I think Brian froze again on us.
You're the one out and up north.
I know, right? Well, you know, I'm in the land of high-speed internet. It just seems everybody out here, no matter where you live, like, you know, you're 20 miles out of town at a camp on a small lake, and you got high-speed internet up here.
No, it's true. It's true.
Crazy.
I'm back now, right? You can hear me?
Yeah.
All right, cool. I was going to say about the David Gilmour. Now, you say David Gilmour specifically, but you also say Floyd. I go back and forth, too. The first music I actually learned to play the drums was David Gilmour's album About Face, which I don't know if you listen to the song Cruise and Murder and just some killer tunes. Absolutely love that stuff. Is that what you're talking about as well? Like his solo stuff?
Yeah, a bit of both. Like I was thinking of like the On an Island album is one that's really good for singing. But I mean, I love like The Dark Side of the Moon, The Wall. The Pulse album is one of my favorites, like one of my favorite live albums. I think that just the way that was one of those things that everything just lined up when they made that album.
I saw Floyd live at the CNE right after the Benson and Hedges Festival of Lights. We took a limousine. We saw the concert. Then we went back in the limousine and took a week-long portage in Algonquin Park, and I saw Aliens. So it was a spectacular week, one of the best weeks of my life, other than my my wedding week. So,
I bet.
Yeah. I'll tell you about those stories another time.
We'll have to talk about the aliens at some point.
Yeah. It's quite a story. So yeah.
I had a music teacher who was actually able to go see Roger Waters and The Wall at I forget where in Toronto he kicked it off, but it was outdoors. So I was jealous of him for that. The closest I've ever got to seeing Pink Floyd was the Comfortably Numb cover band and their tour. Yeah. I saw them when I was in college, and what was very clever about them is at the very end of the tour, they promoted their website with their original material. So they know that Floyd sells, and it's a great place for them to put their stuff at the end.
Well, you can see that they're quality musicians, and you can get
they are phenomenal.
Them. Cool.
Like, they were fantastic, and we thought it was going to be like sitting down and just being and just taking in a Floyd show for 3 hours as they performed The Wall, like from start to end. No, it was an assortment of Floyd stuff. No one was sitting down. Everyone was dancing across the venue, and at the end, everyone was like, "One more song." I'm like, we don't know any Floyd songs called "One More Song," so we'll just play with "Run Like Hell." No,
and that must have been a nice unexpected surprise too, right? Like you probably, it was way better than you expected it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. There are those tribute bands that do it well. Through Thunder Bay, we just had a tribute band for Queen called "It's a Kind of Magic," and My wife said to me, we had front row seats. My wife said as we're leaving, I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't that. And she just beaming like
Wow.
neither one of us had the opportunity to see Freddie Mercury perform live, but it was just awesome. He emulated Freddie like in mannerisms and everything, right? It was just really, really well done. It was almost like if you saw the movie Bohemian Rhapsody, it was very similar to the type of acting we've seen there. It was just amazing. So, tribute bands, don't write them off if you're out there and you want to go see some live music and there's a tribute band coming. Go see them, because chances are they might be the only chance you have to see some of those musicians that are no longer with us. So,
yeah, for
really,
sure,
really well done.
The cool thing about the Pink Floyd concert is you actually wouldn't have needed to see a thing, because you could just sit back, listen to the music, and enjoy the aroma.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
All about light show, though.
Oh man, it was a bit overcasty too that day, and they had this huge mirror ball that comes up from the center of the CNE arena, and they had huge spotlights on all the corners of the CNE. And at one point, they all just went and hit this ball, and lights just shot up through the skies. It was awesome. It was really awesome.
Nice.
All right, that's enough from me talking. Mark, is there anything else you'd like to say before we say goodbye to Jeff?
I'm good. I should just add, I did Google the Red Hot Chili Pipers, and if anybody is in Ontario on August the 12th, they're playing the Fergus Highland Festival from 9:30 to 11 on the main field. So
there you go.
If you're interested in pipers and you want to go see it, Jeff is obviously a fan. So.
Man.
We'll have to send them an email now and let them know that we've just advertised their show.
We have given them free promotion, yeah.
Free press.
Maybe we can get them on the show.
Oh, that would be even more better.
That would be great.
Oh, you know what we'll do? We'll get Jeff as a co-host that night.
There we go.
There we go, yeah.
See? That would be cool. That would actually be very cool. All right, we'll talk about that. All right, Jeff, man, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. And I was really nice to get to meet you. Any friend of my friend Steve's is a friend of mine, so it was really nice to put a face to the stories he's been telling us, and I'm sure he'll be watching this episode as soon as it goes live. Mark, as always, thank you too. Very nice. Jeff, is there anything you'd like to say before we say goodbye?
Anyone out there, find me on Facebook by searching Jeffrey Rainey, Rainey, at Jamming R on Twitter. And just live to laugh and laugh to live. So I can offer any advice.
Perfect. All right. Well, that's it for us, everybody. Thank you so much. Don't forget to click like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and share this with your friends, because we love doing it, and we're going to keep on doing it probably for a while. We might take a little short break coming up. We're going to be talking about that, but ultimately we will be back, and we'll talk all very soon. Take care, everyone. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.